For anyone just coming on right now, we were just talking a little bit about how our meditation practice is going, and somebody was saying that she's been breaking it up into little pieces so that maybe she'll get to work and practice for 10 minutes, and then maybe in the middle of her day she'll practice for like 10 minutes, and then she was trying to practice at night, but it was too difficult because it's just hard to get the kind of space that you need. And it just, it always kind of struck me there are just sort of like foundational teachings that it's never a bad thing to kind of go back to and make sure everybody just understands. So let's talk about that just a little bit before we get into meditation. So one of the things a practice like that is very smart, right? Because there are a lot of us who, the way our life has been set up, it's like nobody's ready to give us 45 minutes to just sit and not be pulled on. Or even if they did, maybe we just don't have the discipline in us yet to even know that we want that. And that's okay. Even during some of my most spiritually productive times on my monastery, I was still driving back to Seattle, sleeping on clients' sofas to make enough money to continue my training, for a week out of every month. And that was a 7-hour drive. And then I'd be driving around and seeing people in their homes. And that was a very busy week. It was very hard to get time to actually meditate when you're making all your money in 5 days for the month. And so what I would do is exactly what you were talking about. I would get to a client's house and I would spend 5 minutes just in deep meditation, when you really get good at this, you can slip right into it. So 5 minutes means 5 minutes truly at your deepest level. And then as soon as I would leave their house, I would do another 5 minutes, which would clean their energy off of me and just kind of make me feel like I could go to the next person. And I would do that all day long. And, I remember back at the time, my teacher saying that I was the only student she had that could go out into the world and come back at the same level of consciousness that I left. Most people, when they go out into the world, they would fall backwards. But I had systems in place that would keep myself awake, aware, and conscious of what I was interacting with, what I was taking on. Because that's really what this is about, right? It's like you need to know. Like, you don't want to wait till the end of the day to figure out that this day took everything out of you. You want to know that it's happening while it's happening. You don't want to wait until the boat is sunk to figure out you have a leak. And so one of the beautiful things about a practice like that is you are constantly checking back in with yourself so that you can see how you're doing and plug up any holes. You can get this vessel, this body-mind complex that you are, centered again, kind of restored and put back together again. And so having several little sessions during the day, even if it's nothing more than just like maybe you have 10 minutes in the morning where you really focus and really kind of get there, and then just several moments throughout the rest of your day where you check in. Maybe you have a symbol in your environment, right? So for some people, they'll say, okay, whenever I see the letter X, I am going to stop what I'm doing and check in, and then you'll suddenly see that there are X's everywhere in your environment. But you find just little ways to get yourself back. And you have to do that because nothing in life is going to do it for you. I mean, nothing except maybe me, right? I'm the only person that's going to ask this of you. Your kids aren't asking it of you. Your work's not asking it of you. So you have to find ways to booby trap your day with little triggers that get you back there. And so I think that's great. I think that's a fantastic way to do that. The other thing to be aware of, and you'll become aware of this if you are doing this several times a day, is that there'll be some times of day that are better for you than others. And that has to do with a lot of different things. Part of it is just your own biorhythm. Like for me, I'm terrible in the morning. For most people, morning is the best time for people for meditation. But when I was learning, this morning was not my best time because, especially back then, I would wake up in a complete fog. I was whatever the absolute opposite of a morning person is. I mean, so far from a morning person that like, I just would not even begin to be able to describe how much of a morning person I have not been in my life. And that is despite having to wake up at like 5 every morning and ring a bell for our monastery. At any rate, my point is, you start to notice what times the wind is at your back. And so there's a certain kind of practice you can do when the wind is at your back, and a different kind of practice that you get when nothing's working for you. And they're both really important practice times. So for most of you, in the morning, before your kids are up and running around, is going to be a fantastic time where the wind is at your back. And it's deeper than just, oh, I don't hear any noise, right? Your kids, your spouses, your boss, they all have connections with you. And those connections are like strings of energy directly into your heart and solar plexus that they can pull on you, and you feel it. You'll feel this antsiness, this need to stop what you're doing and go tend to something. Even if you don't know what it is, you'll feel it. Some of you will feel it more than others. I'm very sensitive to that, almost dysfunctionally sensitive to that. But that's something you'll start to notice. So most people, for that reason, will find that morning is their best time, or maybe after everyone has gone to sleep. I've certainly known people who you would, in fact, I went through phases where I would wake up in the middle of the night to practice. But so that's the practice time where the wind is at your back, where it's going to be really easy. And the beauty of that kind of practice is that it allows you to really see the benefits of meditation. However, to really go anywhere with meditation and spiritual practice in general, you really do have to strengthen the muscle of practicing when there's no reward. And so that might be practicing, for even just 10 minutes while your kids are still awake and running around, or practicing at a certain time during your day where normally everything in you is asking you to focus on a task at work. You don't have to give up a massive amount of time, but can you discipline yourself to sit there and really give yourself to your breath, even though your mind and your personality and everything you've established is pulling against you? If you can do that, and again, we're talking like 10 minutes, if you can do that, then on a daily basis, you can start to cultivate an inner strength about you that will make your meditation unshakable. I come and teach a class like this, and there are some days where everything is going really well for me, and then there are other days where things are going horribly. As most of you know, I had a death in the family, and I'm connected to a lot of people who are suffering over that, and I feel it, and I have my own issues over that. And, I have times where I sit down in a meditation class and I have to throw myself open and teach from that place. And there are times when the wind is at my back and that's really easy. That's most of the time. But there are also times, like I would say last week was a time where I was a little off my game internally, and that happens. But you don't cancel the class. You come, you sit down, you throw yourself open, and you continue doing what you've committed to do. And you're able to do it because you've cultivated that strength in small ways over a long period of time. You got to do that because sometimes those periods last a long time, and you can't just let your life fall apart just because things have gotten bad. So you want to start noticing that. Notice the tides of your day and work all of them. Work the tides where the wind is at your back. Really, the wind at your back meditation is a time where you're feeling kind of energy moving through you and you feel really empowered to meditate. Then there's the time where everything's pulling against it. That's the flip side of that. But there's another tide that's right in the middle of those two things where it's just kind of like nothing's happening. I would say that's probably what the morning time is for most people, you know, especially if you're doing it early. Like if you're doing like 5 a.m. or something, that's going to be that kind of in between space. In spiritual terms, we call that a liminal space. It's the space in between two states. And that is really where the true meditative state sits. It's the space in between your sleep life and your wake life. It's the space in between the breaths, like that moment in between the inhale and the exhale. A little doorway opens. So all times are good times to meditate. But you want to start paying attention to what tide you're in that moment, so that if things aren't working out for you, you can just use that as one of your strength training sessions. And you can just decide, whatever, I'm not going to be life's puppet. I've decided I'm going to meditate. I'm going to sit here and meditate. And I'm just going to suck at meditation for 10 minutes. Okay? So that's one of those teachings that's really foundational and really basic, but I bet I haven't said it in a while. And so that's something to always kind of hold with you, because it's important. All right, let's see. Well, this is good. I thought for a second like only one person was coming, and now all these people are here. Okay, any questions about that before we go into meditation? You can either unmute yourself or you can put them in the chat. Okay. So let's just let the dust settle around us. Just start to become aware of your breath. I'm aware that one of you's feeling really anxious. So why don't we do this, especially if you're the anxious one? I want you just to pretend that you have roots coming out of your tailbone, and just let them flow down, down, down into the earth below you. Doesn't matter if you're upstairs, just see them flowing into ground. Do that now. Good. And now from the center of that system of roots, just send a more intentful projection down into the ground, a link traveling down into the ground. Send it down deeper, deeper into the cool earth. Now that earth has a feeling attached to it, a feeling that is actually filled with information, but it's not in English. It's the kind of information that talks to your subconscious. It's symbolic and feeling oriented. But I want you just to become aware of its general nature, You don't have to give it any words, and you don't have to understand it. Just interface with the feeling of the ground that you're connected to. And just let that feeling flow up into your body. And now take the feelings in your solar plexus, around your stomach, and just flow them down through that root system deep into the earth. Let the earth take that anxiety. It's communing with you, saying, hey, I'm earth, this is what I feel like. And you're communicating with it, saying, hey, this is what I feel like. You're sending your feelings down. And just let there be a little back and forth dialogue between that dark, cool, grounded earth and whatever it feels like to be you right now. And just sit with that communication for a little bit. Let the earth rise up into your body and then fall back down into the earth over and over again, mixing your energies. Take your hands, palms down, and you're going to move them out to the sides of your body. On every exhale, you're going to push down into the earth. On every inhale, you're going to rise your hands up, pulling the earth up through your solar plexus, just barely touching the heart, and then down on every exhale. You can make that movement as big or as small as you like. Just make sure that your hands are directing your intent down into the earth and then pulling up and receiving. Giving of yourself down into the earth. And then on the inhale, pulling up and receiving that stability, that strength, that cool, grounded energy. Do this for a bit. There's no wrong way to do it. You're just rallying your intent. To interface with groundedness. Keep at it. Now, keep doing that while I tell you the next step. As your hands are moving down into the earth and pulling earth up, they're becoming conduits for that energy. And so what you're going to do is, as you're bringing the earth up, you're going to flip your hands in front of you, and you're going to pull that earth energy up through your abdomen. And I want you to notice the difference in how that feels. So down into the earth, then switch your hand position and pull it up the front of you. I'm going to pull up here, but you're not going to go this high. I just want you to see my hands. You're going to stay down, going up to about the level of the solar plexus, just barely touching the heart, and then back down. And because you connected with that earth and it's now in your hands, you're going to notice that as your hands come up, that feeling of anxiety gets grounded very quickly. And I'm pretty sure that worked because I don't feel it anymore. But let me know if it didn't or if you have a question. Now, what is a technique like that? Is it some ancient thing that people have been doing forever? No. No. It's just that everything in life has a nature. And if you understand that nature, and all of you are capable of understanding a nature as simple as earth, air, fire, water, because you are conscious beings, and consciousness can become anything, you can actually merge with that nature and make use of it. And you can use it to balance yourself out. You know, doesn't have to be the earth. It's just the earth is something that everyone can relate to, and it's grounded. You know, a lot of different religions have intricate systems of symbols that you learn to associate with different energies that they use to balance themselves out, and that's the same thing. It's just a product of paying attention. You know, just like when you have a person in your life that you know is very grounded, you know, you often reach out to them when you're feeling anxious because you know that interacting with them is going to give you a feeling that's going to make you feel better. It's the same thing. But how often do you interact with it? How often do you use it consciously like that? You know, I'm a big fan of aromatherapy, you know, and it's not because I believe that, you know, I don't believe that if you smell a rose, you're going to cure your cancer. You know, I'm not one of those people. There are some things that oils can do to your nervous system and to the skin that I think is directly due to a chemical reaction. But there are oils that are just very enlivening and very cleansing to the psyche. You know, lemon oil is one of those oils. You know, I have a blend that I make that is a bunch of different lemony scents mixed with some frankincense and some leaf oils that I use anytime I'm experiencing grief or depression or heaviness. And it's not as simple as smelling the oil. It's more like the technique that I just had you do. You know, for me, I'll take time with the scent because the scent is very beautiful to me. And I will connect to the experience of that scent. And then I will transfer that experience above my head. And on every inhale, I will pull it through my body. And if I'm feeling very heavy, I can lighten myself that way. Or if I'm feeling very ungrounded, I can use more grounding oils if I want to go that direction. Everything has a nature. And all you have to do is spend some time with it to understand that nature. Nothing woo-woo about it. Everything has an effect on you. You know? A blade of grass has an effect on you. A sunset has an effect on you. Every image is really a container for feeling. We've talked about that before. You know, I've had you guys close your eyes and picture some really balanced image, like maybe there's a beach with a cool forest behind you and an ocean in front of you and a light breeze that just keeps the temperature perfect, and you spend time in that. And then we shift you to a scene of traffic with, honking horns and maybe a gray sky, and it shows you through the shift in feeling just how impacted you are by imagery, just how impacted you are by where you placed your attention. When we've done that exercise before, I don't need to take you through it again now. I think you get the gist, right? I don't think it's a massive spiritual statement to say that whatever you're looking at affects how you feel. What's funny is that most people, if they're not feeling right, won't work with that. Instead, they'll just do something to numb themselves out. They'll drown themselves in television or sex or alcohol or something else. When really, you could shift your attention to something balancing and you could move that through your body. And the trick to making that really real for you is to make it an interaction. There has to be some degree of giving and receiving. If you don't give, you don't create the space for reception. That's why we send your energy down. That's why when I'm working with an oil, I'm using my breath. I'm pulling it in and then I'm breathing it out. And there's that movement, that interaction that creates relationship. Everything you looked at today had a nature. Every room you were in was an arrangement of different natures. Different ways of feeling and ways of being arranged in a space. That's why when you reorganize your home, you feel so different. That's why when you clean out a drawer, your home feels different, even when the drawer is closed. Because just the nature of what's there is different. Everything you saw today had an effect on your psyche. And of the things, of the buffet of natures in front of you, where you placed your attention had an impact on your psyche. It had an impact on what you wanted to do next. It had an impact on how you spoke to people. It impacted everything. One of the best skills you can learn is the ability to wipe that slate clean at a moment's notice. That's what I do before every meditation class. I sit down and I don't even have to think about it anymore. Everything just goes clean. Whatever I've been a part of, it's just kind of loosened and open and ready to move right out. And that's what meditation does. It just clears that slate and allows you to just be with your own nature, unmodified by the things in your world, so that you can actually get to see what you are. Because without spending time outside of the natures of other things and people, you almost can't even see that you're exposing yourself to the natures of other people. You know, if a fish is never outside of water, a fish is going to have a really hard time understanding what water even is. Because not water is part of the definition of water. You know, you need the opposite in order to be able to define something. Water is something and water isn't something. And you need to understand both of them to understand water. So fish have a hard time understanding water. And if you don't spend time outside of the influences of your world, you're going to have a hard time catching the influences of your world. Those of you who have been meditating for a very long time will understand the experience I'm about to talk about. And that experience is, you know, when you're going through a phase where you're really working on your meditation, so you're really actually spending time in the silence and you're getting to a place where things feel clear and they're flowing, and then you leave meditation, there is a very specific process of stepping back in to your life story. There'll be like one little thing that comes into that pristine, clear sky of your mind that, if you latch onto it, leads to another thing, another thing, another thing, another thing, and before you know it, you are right back in your world. Those of you who haven't practiced meditation far enough to see that yet, a way that you could see it is the way you feel when you return back to the place where you were raised, or when you go to visit your parents. There's a whole system of feelings that you had to tolerate throughout your entire childhood, based largely upon the cues that come from your parents, from how they view you, all the memories that you have stored back in those houses, that arrangement of mind that comes from your past. You know, you'll be living your independent life and you won't be feeling defensive about your parents in any way. You might even be excited to see them. But then you go home and all of a sudden, all of your buttons are pushed. And it's like no one even really said anything wrong. But for some reason, you're just crawling the walls wanting to get out of there. Well, that's because you have stepped back in to a system of natures, a system of things, attitudes, opinions, and energies that are not in sync with who you are right now, but have a magnetic pull on you because you were once in sync with them. You find it much harder to control your feelings when you go back to visit some old scenario and people where there, especially one where there used to be a power dynamic. So it's really no different than that. Only the ideal is to be able to completely wipe the slate clean, because then you get to see who you are without it. Who are you outside of the story? And that's something for you to figure out. That's not for me to tell you. To figure that out, you have to step into the present moment. You have to let go of the past, let go of the future, and just be with what's left. The breathing, meditating you. Which is actually the only part of you that's real. The rest of you is just a bunch of stuff you're carrying from your past and a bunch of concerns you have for your future, which even your future is pretty much, your concerns for your future are all built out of your fears built in from your past. So really, all you have is your past. There is no future. But that's a system of stories. And it's like a wool that gets pulled over your eyes that keeps you, like a fish stuck in water. You can't see that the wool's pulled over, and you can't see what you are. Meditation just puts a crack in that system so that the light of what you are can start shining through. At first, what happens is you start seeing the nature of that veil. You start seeing all the attitudes and opinions and limitations that you've imposed upon your sense of self. All the places you can and can't go, all the things that are you, that are, and the things that are not you. All of your likes and dislikes, attitudes and opinions. And you start to catch some of the ones that are very dysfunctional. And because you're waking up, you start to put those down. Just the ones that you have enough personal power to change. And you keep going like that, and then you eventually end up in a space where you're able to drop the veil entirely for periods of time. It still comes back up because, you got to visit your parents. You got to return to your job. You got to return to your life. And there's just a system there. But when you've really seen what's on the other side of the veil, you never enter the system the same way. Once you know that all of the things you're suffering with are really just a product of a bunch of dysfunctional views, this veil of likes and dislikes, then the ones that are kind of making the moment feel awful, you start letting go of those. Your willingness to tolerate unnecessary suffering goes down. And you start letting go of things you don't need. And that's what the entire spiritual path is. It's a process of just day by day by day, letting go, letting go, letting go. In the beginning, it's someone like me saying, lift the veil, lift the veil, lift the veil, and you sitting there doing your best, right? You catch, you place your attention on me while we're meditating, and you get a feeling of what it feels like to be me, so it becomes a little easier to meditate, right? I learned the same way. So it accelerates things. It allows you to have a nature in the room that directs you to meditation. But the goal is to make that yours, right? To make that something that you can go home with. You don't want to be dependent on me. So you go home and you practice. And if you do it after a short period of time, you'll start to notice first that you feel better, and then that you start feeling clearer. There's this clarity about how life works. You look around your world and it just looks like it's filled with crazy people, just toxic, crazy people. And it is. And you start to kind of take a stance within that is coming from what you learned through your silence, through your meditation. You start to catch when you're getting sucked up into a useless current, and you pull yourself out of it. At first, you'll catch it at the end of the day, but you'll be awake enough to know that you're exhausted and that something stupid happened. And you'll figure out what it is. And you'll make the necessary changes, whether it's a shift in the attention or slowly extracting yourself from a role that you're filling, you figure it out and you do what you have to do. But that's the goal. That's what spiritual life is. People can dress it up with all sorts of religious underpinnings, but if you are not slowly, daily letting go of those things that aren't getting you anywhere, if you aren't daily trying to pop your head above the water so that you can get out of this ocean of stories and just take a deep, real, authentic breath and see what you actually are without them. If you're not doing that every day, then you're not walking a spiritual path. You might be walking a religious path, but you've taken the spirituality out of the religion. If you're not doing that in some way. And that can come in many forms. That can come in intense prayer. But I mean prayer where you get to a point where you've run out of words and now all you have left is just your silent request. Your silent just giving of yourself. Which is meditation. It's present in any real religion. We call it different things. But the majority of people in any given religion are not actually doing that. They're not giving themselves to the teachings. They're skimming the surface. And if you're one of those people, you need to know you're not on that path. Doesn't matter how many communions you take. It doesn't matter whether you attend church every Sunday. If you haven't broken in to the core of the spiritual underpinnings of that path and are drinking deeply from the nectar of that, then you're not on that path. With a class like this, I set it up so that you can be an atheist, you can be a Catholic, you can be anything you want. And you should be able to take these teachings and enliven your spiritual path within them. You should be able to go back to your spiritual texts and understand them through the lens of what you learn in the silence. Similarly, you can just look at the basics of ethics and morality if you are not a religious person, and you can enliven that with these meditations. The point is, do it. The point is, get your feet on the path and make sure they stay on it every single day. Which again, you are popping your head above the water through meditation. And you are watching when you get caught up in silly stories and mind stuff. And you're doing what you have to do to pull out of them. The more you do that, the more you can do it. In the beginning, it's a little sliver of light poking through this shell, right? A class like this makes a little crack in the shell. But once you see the light coming in, you can see what's on the corners of that crack, and you can start pulling that away too and pulling that away too. Until eventually, you can just step into the shell, step out of the shell, put the veil down, lift the veil up, and just participate with life the way it actually is. An ocean of stories that are only real because we are maintaining them with our consciousness and our attention. And the power that is running through that actually comes from our truest selves, our deepest nature, which is the consciousness that sits at the heart of your silence. The intelligent, resonant light that you start to experience when you stay quiet inside and open for a long period of time. So that's the practice. And that's what you need to do every single day. Any questions about that? Because I have talked for a long time and we need to meditate. All right, let's go into the silence. Attention, forehead and crown. And now you're here in this class. So rather than slowly working your way towards it, just lift the veil. Just throw yourself wide open and give yourself to the breath and nothing else. Okay, it's 7:48. You can handle anything for 12 minutes. Sink into your chair, throw yourself wide open, and step right in to your deepest meditative state. For anyone new in the class tonight, we're placing our attention at the forehead and crown. Keep your eyes open. Let them fall to a spot on the floor or the desk in front of you. And you're just going to begin to watch your breath. When the mind comes in to take you away from the breath, just don't play with it. Return to the breath. Return to the breath. Return to the breath. You're going to breathe in, breathe out, and literally nothing else. Go for it. Slow yourself down. Way, way down. Why should you move faster than the moment? Slow down so that you can drink deeply of this moment. This is actually what normal feels like. You've been putting an element of rushing on automatic pilot. You've been doing it so long that you're not even conscious of it. And that rushing is actually a rejection of the moment. So slow yourself way down. How much of this moment can you unfold into? How much of it can you touch with your consciousness? How long can you make this minute last? Slow way down, and you're there. Even in the realm of the story, even within this dream of your life, time is your most precious commodity. When it runs out, you can't do anything more. It's insanity to squander it. Don't waste an inch of this present moment. Catch it all. And relax within this. Make this your home. Make this your new home base, your new normal. And from this place, be on the lookout for any part of you that wants to chase some story. Okay, everybody. Any questions about anything we talked about tonight? Tonight was a very foundational class. You're welcome, Onrita. Very auspicious name. Amrit is the divine nectar. Good to see you too, Teresa. Tonight was a foundational class because it carries the essence of meditation. The simplicity of what you were taught in this class today could take you the whole way. If you really did it every day and kept at it, you wouldn't need me. The only thing you need me for is to keep reminding you that you care about this. But if you really did it every day, you wouldn't need me. So, do it. Make a commitment to yourself. Decide you're going to spend 14 days doing this every single day. And keep a little journal just so that you can see what it did. And then make a decision in 14 days if you want to do another 14. All right, I'm going to let you get back to your lives. Thank you so much, and I will be here next week. Thank you.